Stacy Matlack, editor of the Taos News. As of Wednesday, there are 16 cases in Taos County with about 500 people tested. Are people getting the care they need and the tests they need in Taos County?
Well, actually, I think perhaps that number has gone up, and you're going to hear about that today, Laura, because I just found out yesterday that 2 of the staff at Taos Living Center tested positive. So I don't believe that was in yesterday's state numbers. So I think we might be as high as 18 now. And the irony is that they had just tested the entire staff and all their clients at the nursing home a week and a half ago, and they were all negative. And then 2 staff were retested and they were positive. So that's how quick things change. And we had gone a nice stretch before that. From April 9th until yesterday, we had no new cases. We had stayed at 15. So you asked if there's enough testing. I mean, I don't think there's enough testing anywhere, right? They really, of course, it would be best if you could get everybody tested, and that's just not possible right now. I've not heard too much complaint from people that they feel there's not enough testing. I think so far everybody who feels they need to be tested have been tested. So
the Taos News has reported about Holy Cross Medical Center in Taos. That's a 25-bed critical access hospital that serves about 37,000 people. You reported it has 6 ICU beds and 4 ventilators. What are they bracing for, and how is that hospital getting ready?
So last week, Rio Arriba County donated 20 more beds from a nursing home that they took over, one that had shut down. So that gives them 20 more beds. They've converted some of their rooms into additional ICU isolation rooms if they need to. So far, none of the 16, potentially 18 people that have tested positive have been kept at the hospital. They've all been able to go home, be isolated. There was one person that I know of for sure that was sent to Santa Fe because they had a lot more symptoms. And so I think that is what Holy Cross is doing. If it's somebody who presents with really serious symptoms, they may be transporting them down to Santa Fe or Albuquerque. So that's all I know at the moment.
Okay. And the hospital is offering a loyalty differential of $2 an hour, your newspaper reported. Is there a problem attracting and retaining medical staff in the area, or is it just kind of a reward for people?
I think there might be a bit of both. They were already struggling a little bit to attract and retain some healthcare professionals. When, Presbyterian drew away some of our nursing staff a couple of years ago. But I also know that the union, which represents folks, all the way up to Taos at the hospital, they were pushing for some kind of increased hazard pay, essentially. And so Holy Cross did do that. And that was an additional pay on top of what they had just negotiated with the union. So.
And Taos obviously is a tourist town. Given the virus and the public health measures that we're taking, what is Taos like right now? Is it a tourist town without tourists, or are people still coming? And how is this affecting the economy up there?
Like any place that's a tourist town, it's devastated the town. I think we do have a lot of restaurants, more than I expected, have tried to remain open for takeout, and local people are working very hard to support the restaurants. Tourists have been fewer and farther between, which is good, and I really hear very few people encouraging tourists to come. They really are urging people to stay away for now. There was still a bit of a problem with short-term rentals. We have a lot of them in Taos, and a few of them were sort of ignoring the urgings, but the town of Taos, at least, has now banned short-term rentals, and that was helped by the governor's restrictions. They've said that they have to be at a reduced occupancy. And so that's pretty much prevented the short-term rentals from operating in the town of Taos. So, yeah, I mean, you still see the occasional Texas license plate, but of course they may be residents. So it's a little hard to say that they're out of town. Yeah.
So I'm curious, I'm here in Albuquerque. I rarely leave my house, but when I do, it still seems like there are a lot of people out, and I'm not seeing a lot of people wearing masks. What about in Taos? Are people staying home? When they go out, are they wearing masks? How is the governor's message getting across up there?
At least a week or so ago, Taos County had the best record of staying home based on cell phone data anyway, that we were not traveling anywhere near as much. There'd been something like a 70% reduction in travel. So I do think for the most part, most people are trying to. But, you know, and definitely there are a lot more people wearing masks and gloves when you go to grocery stores than there were even 2 weeks ago. Not everybody. There's certainly, you know, we have a big major road construction project underway, and those workmen are not wearing masks for the most part, unless they're standing over the melted asphalt, having to deal with that dust and stuff. But yeah, for the most part, there have been some complaints about some of our grocery stores. You will still see some checkers and not checkers, but folks stocking shelves, and they are not always wearing masks and gloves. So I would say it's probably 60-40. 60% of people are wearing masks out in public and 40 are not.
Oh, that is really good. Any other unique challenges that you feel like Taos, the city itself, or Taos County are really facing right now with this crisis?
I think one of the biggest concerns for a lot of people is that our farmers market at the moment is not open. I mean, it was not going to open until May 16th, but at the moment it has no place to open. Now, we know that the Farmers Market Board and manager are working on that, but we really do not know yet how far along they are. They say they plan to open May 16th as scheduled, but we don't know where. We don't know if that will be on the plaza, the Taos Plaza, where it has been held. And that's, a lot of people are really worried about that, both the farmers and the people who really frequent the farmers market here. So at the moment, we don't know for sure, but they are saying they will open.
Right. Well, Stacy Matlock, editor of the Taos News, thank you so much, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura.